The last of a dying breed, a PTSD-inducing monster that took the saying, bigger is better, and simply just went bigger. This is a 2013 Mercedes C63, or should I say, it's a 6.2 litre dual overhead cam V8 with some seats strapped to it. Today, we're going to see if this old dinosaur has stood the test of time, and whether it can still put a smile on my face. We must also delve a little deeper and see whether this car can survive the daily drive. We'll take it into the real world to find out exactly what kind of car this is for the average Joe like me. My name's Tom, and you're watching Paragon Cars. Let's go. Firstly, let's talk some more about this glorious V8 engine. You'll notice it says 6.3 on the side. However, this is indeed only 6.2 litres, so why put 6.3 on it? Well, the badge pays homage to the first V8 Mercedes ever made. Today, we'll just have to put up with 6.2. In the front, you'll find sporty seats wrapped in Mercedes' finest leather. They're adjustable in every way you could ever need, and also come with a memory function. There's also still this pretty cool looking floating dial in the dash, with also all the info you'd ever need, from MPG to music. The screen still looks fairly modern. The centre console is where things look slightly dated though. The number pad is pretty much obsolete, and I've personally never used it in a Mercedes. Underneath that, there's some galvanised metal switches for your heated seats, parking sensors and traction control. A button that should only be touched by people with a death wish. There's then a sunroof that tilts and opens, definitely something worth having, not only to let more of that glorious noise in, but also allows more light in the cabin. Of course, every engine needs a good gearbox, and this 7-speed automatic is perfectly capable of doing the job. It's not DCT quick, but it's by no means a slouch. Lastly, in the front, there's your driving mode selector. You have Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus and Manual. Pretty self-explanatory. Sport Plus will allow more slip at the rear whilst making the throttle even more responsive. Coming into the back, there's just enough room for an adult back here. I'm 5'11" and I can just about get comfy. As you can see, there's a little bit of legroom and just enough headroom. You could certainly do a long journey in here without feeling too cramped in this car. There's even an armrest for added comfort. In the boot, you'll find 351 litres of space. Not massive, but it's still enough for 3 large suitcases or 5 small ones. Right, let's take this beast for a drive and see how it's held up over the past 8 years. So we are driving a 2013 Mercedes C63. Now this is the first time I've ever driven this car. I've been lucky enough to drive some other performance cars, but this was a car that I had on my wall when I was a kid, so it's always been a kind of bucket list thing for me to drive. Besides the whole performance aspect of the car, it's going to be quite interesting to see what it's like as a normal car. 8 years on, everything still feels very solid, to be honest. No squeaks or rattles yet. Suspension feels really nice and comfy going over these bumps. Feels fairly similar to a sort of new C-Class, to be honest. One thing you notice immediately is there's just no lag in the power. You can feel your right foot has control of this almost infinite feeling amount of torque. Steering at slower speeds is also really, really light. I thought it was going to be really heavy, but this system, it feels direct, like you know where the wheels are pointing, but the actual steering itself is very light. Surprisingly good. First, we're going to do some boring stuff. We're going to see what this car's like to park. Theoretically, it should be quite easy because this car is actually really, really small. All the newer cars have a lot more crash protection in them. No reverse camera on this, but it does have the pretty neat parking sensor system. So if I'm looking in the rear view mirror, there's actually a little light on the ceiling in the back that tells me how close I am to objects. It's a pretty neat idea, really. They still use that in the latest Mercedes as well. Yeah, because the car's small, it's really easy to park. Visibility is fantastic as well. Coming out of junctions is very easy in this car. One thing I noticed just then is the back end was already slipping out and we didn't even go above 2,500 RPM. And this is just in comfort mode. This is what I mean when I say it's an engine with seats strapped on the back. You're kind of just in for the ride with this car. Right, we're actually going to reset the trip computer now, and we're going to see how bad the MPG really is in this car. In terms of drivability and the effortlessness of speed, this car is just, it leaves me speechless, to be honest. The way it just picks up pace is just so effortless compared to turbo cars these days. If you can hear any rattling, just ignore it. It's the number plate I've got in the windscreen. There's also some camera equipment in the back as well. Okay, we're coming up to a national speed limit sign now, so I'm going to put the car into Sports Plus. Actually, why not go for manual mode? This is a 7-speed automatic, which is the slightly older transmission. But it still responds fairly well. You can open the sunroof as well. And getting up to speed is no problem for this car. As you can see, it's still very quick. 0 to 60 in about 4.4 seconds. That's if you've got grip. And this car will go all the way to 174 miles an hour very easily if there's no limiter. For now, we're going to leave it in comfort mode. And see what kind of MPG we get on the motorway. Or lack of it. We are going to do some twisty road driving later on in the video, so if you want to see that, just keep skipping forwards. Coming onto motorway in comfort, if you just want to put your foot down, the transmission actually responds fairly well. And the noise is just addictive. As you can see, that was a speed limit very, very quickly. Later on in the video, we'll also go through the costs of running this car, so things like finance, insurance, fuel cost, and then servicing as well. And I think you'll be surprised, the one main expense is just fuel with this car. The 7-speed transmission is fairly reliable, and the engine, because it has no turbos, it's not under so much pressure to get things going. You've just got a lot of displacement to pick up the speed. Okay, now we're on the motorway. We're going to put the cruise control on 70 miles an hour and talk about some of the other things about this car. May as well start with comfort. The seats themselves are very, very comfortable. The only downside to them is I'd like them to get a little bit lower. I feel like I'm sitting quite high up in this car. But they hug you really, really well, and the quality of the leather is absolutely fantastic. In terms of interior quality, the rest of it matches the seats. You've got squidgy materials on the door cards, on the dash. There's almost no plastic in here, which is really good. Certainly something a lot of later Mercedes could do with. In terms of sound deadening, it's also really good, to be honest. There's almost no tyre noise, pretty much the same as any new Mercedes C-Class, Audi A5, BMW 4 Series. In terms of wind noise as well, really, really good. There's only a little bit coming from the back, but but you can totally forgive it for that. It's certainly better than I expected. You've also got most of the creature comforts that you'd be used to, so you've got heated seats, their memory as well. You've got auto fold mirrors, so when you lock the car they fold themselves in automatically. There's pretty much everything you'd ever need in here. You've still got a sat nav, you've still got Bluetooth. Not sure if it's got Bluetooth audio, because I haven't looked yet, but I'm pretty sure it does. Certainly the later versions of this car definitely had it. I'm pretty sure it was from like 2013 onwards they had it, so this one probably does. And then you've got dual zone climate control here as well. Air conditioning still works really well. Got plenty of places to put your phone, your drinks. Yeah, it's a really nice interior. You can certainly daily this car. It's a lot more comfortable than I thought it was going to be. In terms of visibility out the side, it's really, really good as well. As I said before, because it's a small car, you've got quite low slung windows. So it's very, very easy to place yourself on the road. You know, this car is more the size of a Mercedes A-Class saloon now, instead of a Mercedes C-Class. In terms of fuel economy, we're getting 19 at the minute. I think on a long run you might see 24, but we're going to do a couple more miles on the motorway and see what we can get. Even the standard sound system is fairly good in these cars. There's plenty of bass. Yeah, nothing to complain about really. You can upgrade to the Harman Kardon system, and that's certainly better, but it's not like night and day different. This is still very, very good for what it is. One of the only old bits of tech is this number pad down here. Having said that though, this number pad was still used in the last generation Mercedes A-Class, so all the way up to 2018 they had this stupid bloody thing in the centre console. And let me know in the comments below if anyone's actually ever used that, because I certainly never have. Okay, so after that short stint on the motorway, we managed 23 miles to the gallon. Yeah, not a very impressive figure, and it's certainly something that would hurt your wallet. If you do about 10 to 12,000 miles a year, you're looking at about 400 to 600 pounds a month on fuel, depending how far you drive and how you drive and where you drive. If you're driving around town, obviously you're going to get about 18 miles to the gallon, which is not great, to be honest. And if you drive on the motorway, you'll get about 23-ish. As you can see there, 23. If you drive very, very carefully, you might get all the way up to 28, but I don't think you'd get much more than that. We're now coming up to one of my favourite bits of Twisty Road. We're going to put the car into just sports mode this time, I think. And we'll leave it in auto and see how the gearbox responds. Open the sunroof a bit so you can get some of that noise. You can keep your Tesla. I'll have one of these, thanks. This is one of the best sounding V8s ever made. That's not an opinion, that is a fact. On the way back, let's go for manual mode. I'm not going to turn traction control off because I don't particularly want to kill myself. As good as a driver as I think I am, I'm not that guy. In manual mode, you do indeed have to change gears yourself. Getting up to 60 is no problem in this car, as you might imagine. And it still feels unbelievably quick. This feels no slower to me than a BMW M4. In fact, it feels slightly quicker, to be honest. I'm sure it's probably not, but the response of a naturally aspirated engine is just something that you have to experience. The reason this car is so expensive to run is because for some reason, whenever you see a tunnel, it does this. And I just can't figure out why. We're going to start making our way back now. And whilst we do, we may as well talk about the costs of running this car. Obviously, as I mentioned before, it's about £400 to £600 a month in fuel with normal driving. That's with a bit of fun, obviously. It's kind of like a 2-litre turbocharged car, but you're always driving it hard. Having said that, we haven't gone below half tank yet, and we've done quite a lot of driving, surprisingly. Then you've got your insurance. It was actually only 1,100 quid for me, and I'm only 24 years old and I live in London, so it's exactly the same price as my Seat Leon Cupra. Actually cheaper than an Audi S3 or a Golf R to insure, surprisingly. And then comes maintenance. A base service for this car is £200, fairly similar to what you'd spend on any other Mercedes. And then a major service, you're looking at about £500, depending on where you get it done, obviously. In terms of reliability, these engines are actually really good. You've just got normal wear and tear stuff, so all the rubber belts and things that need changing will have to be changed at some point, purely because the rubber just cracks. And it's all the other standard stuff like gasket seals, all that kind of stuff needs changing. But overall, it's actually not a very expensive car to maintain. As I said before, the main cost is just fuel, really. But if you're light with your right foot, which, sad to say, I don't think anyone who buys this car is going to drive it economically. So of course, your main cost will be fuel. But other than that, yeah, it's a perfectly affordable car. And in terms of finance, these are actually going up in value now. So don't just look at the monthly figure, look at the whole cost of the car. This car's up for, I think, £23,000 or £24,000. Lower mileage ones will be all the way up into the 28s, if not the 30s now. But this has done 68,000 miles and it feels as fresh as daisy, to be honest. It still feels brand new. No squeaks or rattles that would drive you nuts. Gotta do another sound check. That's just in comfort mode as well. And the finance figure you'd be looking at for this car, if you put £1,000 down, you'd be paying about £450 a month. So if you've got a spare £900 a month sitting around, you could easily afford to buy, insure, fuel this car. Not actually that much difference compared to a hot hatch, really. A hot hatch would be a couple of £100 a month cheaper. But this is so much more than just a car. This is like a piece of history that you're never going to see again. The last of the naturally aspirated V8s. Don't be sad to see it go, be glad that it happened. We're on our way back to the dealership now, so I may as well wrap the video up here. If you can get your hands on one of these, you're very, very lucky. And as I said before, they will start going up in value quite a lot, purely because they're not made anymore, and they're going to get rarer and rarer as people crash them, which I won't be surprised if that happens quite often with these, to be honest. As always, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and why not subscribe to our channel so you can see some more of our stock. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.